My name is Tina, and I spent most of my adult life believing in fairness, honesty, and family loyalty. I had been wrong. So painfully wrong that I'm still coming to terms with it. It all began quietly, the kind of betrayal you don't notice until it's too late. Over the years, I had paid for almost everything in my family. Birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, you name it. My cousins went to expensive summer camps. I covered their plane tickets. My siblings wanted new phones and gadgets. I quietly bought them while juggling my bills and rent. When my grandmother was sick, I paid for the private nurse, the medications, and even the hospital bills. Did I expect a medal? No. But I expected acknowledgement, a simple thank you, a nod that my contributions mattered. Instead, it was brushed off as if it was my duty. Then came the college years. I was determined to finish my degree independently. I worked part-time jobs, sometimes 2 at a time, juggling late-night shifts, weekend work, and early morning classes. I ate simple meals, avoided unnecessary expenses, and saved every possible penny. Meanwhile, family members lived extravagantly, luxury dinners, spa days, trips, and gadgets they couldn't even pay for on their own. And yet, when my name came up in conversations, it was always, Tina doesn't contribute, she doesn't do enough, she's not adding value. The first real shock came when I turned 22. My father, after years of vague promises, finally decided to help with family expenses. I naively thought this meant he'd finally acknowledge my sacrifices. Instead, he gave me a tiny, broken-down car. It was barely functional, windows stuck, engine rattled, paint peeling, and came with a list of repairs that made it unsafe for daily use. I asked hesitantly, "Is this really all?" He shrugged. "Well, it's something. You don't really spend time adding value, Tina. You work, yes, but you're not investing in the family like everyone else." That sentence hit me like a physical blow. I had paid for every family dinner, every repair, every bill for others who didn't lift a finger. Yet they somehow framed me as the problem. Then came the subtle financial exploitation. Over the years, I had allowed some family members access to my bank accounts temporarily to pay for shared bills, thinking they would reimburse me. They didn't. Slowly, quietly, they drained thousands of dollars. My stepmother, Clara, had a habit of borrowing for groceries, furniture, even luxury items, always saying she would repay me. She never did. I remember one instance vividly. It was Christmas Eve, and my stepsister Mia wanted to buy a designer dress for the family party. She claimed she had no cash and asked me to cover it temporarily. I reluctantly transferred the money from my account. Weeks later, she flaunted the dress in family photos, bragging about her gift from me as if it were a favor, while publicly teasing me for being frugal and penny pinching. Another example, my stepmother convinced me to co-sign on a minor loan for family renovations. I agreed, trusting her. Over time, she funneled large portions to personal vacations and expensive dining. Every question I asked about the repayments was met with sighs, excuses, and guilt-tripping. "We're family, Tina. You shouldn't care about money, it's about love." Every instance, every manipulation built on the same foundation. Make me feel guilty for my financial prudence while siphoning off my hard-earned money. And then the will. The final blow. When my father passed and the estate was divided, I expected fairness. I expected that my years of contributions, sacrifices, and silent labor would at least be acknowledged. Instead, Clara and Mia received sizable inheritances, cash, investments, and property, while I was given only that broken car. No money, no appreciation, no acknowledgement of how I had kept the family afloat financially for years. Their justification? You don't spend or invest in the family. You're too focused on yourself. I was stunned. All the late nights working double shifts so I could pay for my college tuition? That counted for nothing. Every unpaid bill I had covered for family events? Nothing. Every sacrifice for others, every dollar spent to maintain appearances for the family? Nothing. At that moment, I realized something crucial. They had been manipulating me for years, taking advantage of my integrity, patience, and sense of responsibility. They saw my contributions as something owed to them, not as acts of care or love, and I knew what I had to do next. For years, I had been polite, patient, and accommodating. I had tolerated manipulation, gaslighting, and financial exploitation because I thought family loyalty meant putting up with injustice. But the will, the broken car, the excuses, the empty justifications, shattered that illusion. I realized something crucial. My kindness had been mistaken for weakness, and my generosity had been exploited. I decided that if my family thought they could drain me quietly while criticizing my every move, I would show them exactly what happens when someone takes control. The first step was my finances. Clara and Mia had long had access to my accounts, credit cards, and joint financial tools. They had borrowed money under the guise of shared family expenses countless times. The withdrawals were subtle at first, $100 here, $250 there. But over the years, it added up to thousands of dollars that vanished into their personal purchases. Luxury items, expensive dinners, vacations, all while I struggled to cover bills and tuition. I started quietly documenting everything: withdrawals, charges, dates, and excuses they had given. Each one was a piece of the puzzle, proving they had been systematically exploiting me. Then, late one night, I made the move. I canceled every credit card, froze joint accounts, and changed banking passwords. Every attempt they made to access my finances was immediately blocked. Every sneaky transfer they had planned was rendered impossible. I didn't send warnings. I didn't explain myself. I simply reclaimed control over my money, my life, and my independence. The reaction was instantaneous. First, it was confusion. Clara called me repeatedly, her voice tense and high-pitched. "Tina, what are you doing? You can't just—" "I can. And I did," I said, calm and deliberate. Her tone shifted, trying guilt. We're family. How can you do this to us? I'm protecting myself, I replied. I've been paying for this family for years. I've been generous. I've been exploited. This ends now. Next came Mia, texting incessantly, trying every tactic she had perfected over the years. Pleading, threatening, flattering. You're overreacting. It's not that serious. We just need help. Don't be selfish. I read the messages with a strange detachment. For years I had endured manipulation and guilt-tripping, pretending to be accommodating while silently resenting every moment. Now I felt nothing for their theatrics. Every incident I recalled flashed vividly in my mind. The time Mia borrowed hundreds for a trip with friends while I worked double shifts to pay rent, then laughed about it in front of relatives as if I had given it willingly. The time Clara convinced me to loan money for a family emergency that turned out to be a spa weekend for herself and her friends. The endless comments about how I don't spend enough time or money on the family, while every cent I earned was secretly taken, every effort overlooked. The anger, frustration, and heartbreak had once consumed me. Now it fueled a cold clarity. Clara and Mia escalated their attempts after realizing they had lost access. Calls at all hours, texts filled with manipulation, even attempts to guilt my father into intervening. Your daughter is being unreasonable, Clara would say, her voice trembling with faux indignation. She's destroying family unity over money. But my father, perhaps finally seeing the pattern, said nothing. I didn't respond to any of them. Not a single word. I wasn't going to justify my actions. I wasn't going to explain why their decades of manipulation had finally reached a breaking point. I let the silence speak. In the days and weeks that followed, they tried everything. Flattery, anger, desperation, even begging. I remained unmoved. They realized the power they once held over me, the ability to make me feel guilty, small, or obligated, was gone forever. For the first time in my life, I felt true control over my own life and finances. Every dollar, every decision, every moment of freedom was mine. I didn't need their approval, their permission, or their validation. They had underestimated me. They had assumed my generosity, patience, and compliance were weaknesses. They had thought they could continue exploiting me without consequence. But now, they had learned, too late, that I was no longer their source of financial security or emotional manipulation. And for the first time in years, I smiled. Not out of cruelty, not out of malice, but because I had finally freed myself from the people who had taken advantage of my kindness and hard work for far too long. After I reclaimed control of my finances, a strange thing happened. The family who had taken me for granted for years suddenly realized how much power they had lost. Calls and messages flooded in from every direction. Clara was the first to try the emotional angle. Tina, please. I didn't mean it like that. Can we just talk? We're family. I didn't respond. I refused. I had spent years listening to family excuses, watching them drain my money, mocking my sacrifices, and then gaslighting me for being selfish when I asked for fairness. Now, silence was my shield. Next, Mia tried the guilt approach. You've changed, Tina. After everything we've done for you. I laughed quietly, remembering the years of unpaid bills, borrowed money, and vacations funded by me. Everything you've done for me? I whispered to myself. You mean everything you've taken from me? They tried other tactics too. Flattery. You've always been the smartest one in the family, Tina. Surely we can come to an understanding. Anger. How dare you take away our access? We were counting on that money. Manipulation. If you loved the family at all, you'd share. But I remained calm. The years of being underestimated had taught me patience and restraint. I didn't need to justify my actions. The truth spoke for itself. Then came the attempts to involve my father. They thought he would pressure me into relenting. Tina, your stepmother is right, you're being harsh. My father said one evening when I met him for coffee. But unlike before, I held my ground. Dad, I said, voice firm. I've been covering the family for years, sacrificing time, money, and energy. I've been generous and responsible. They've taken advantage of me. This is not harshness, this is fairness, and I'm not going back. He fell silent, and I saw the first flicker of realization in his eyes. He finally understood what I had endured. Meanwhile, Clara and Mia escalated their desperation. They showed up at my apartment unannounced, tried to corner me at family gatherings, and even sent mutual friends to plead their case. Every approach was met with the same calm response. No. I had learned something essential. Once someone has exploited your generosity repeatedly, you owe yourself the right to protect it. Over time, the family began to understand the magnitude of their mistakes. They saw me thriving independently, managing my own finances, living within my means but without fear, and never needing their validation. Clara called one last time, voice trembling. Tina, maybe we overstepped. We didn't realize how much you were doing for everyone. I smiled inwardly but said nothing. I had nothing to prove anymore. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need recognition. I had already taken back my power, and that was enough. Mia tried a final desperate plea via text. Please, let's just come to an understanding. We can split things differently, share. I deleted the message. I didn't reply. I didn't care. Because in the end, I had learned a truth they had never understood. Generosity is not weakness, patience is not compliance, and kindness does not entitle others to exploit you. I had survived betrayal, manipulation, and greed, and in doing so, I had emerged stronger, wiser, and completely free. The family had realized too late that their entitlement and deception had cost them not just money, but my respect and trust, and no amount of begging, pleading, or manipulation could ever change that. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully, knowing I was finally untouchable by the people who had once tried to drain everything from me. Even after I cut off access to my finances, Clara and Mia did not give up. Their desperation turned into emotional warfare, a series of manipulations designed to guilt me, confuse me, and regain control. Clara would send long letters, filled with half-truths and fake concern. "Tina, you know we only wanted what was best for you. Why are you punishing us?" Mia would call late at night, pretending to cry. "I can't sleep thinking you're angry at me. Please, just talk to me." They tried indirect attacks too, talking about me to other relatives, painting me as selfish, ungrateful, and cold-hearted, hoping someone would pressure me into giving in. But I remembered every detail of their exploitation. The designer dress Mia had flaunted after I had paid for it, the spa vacations Clara had taken using family funds, the constant ridicule whenever I tried to assert myself. Each manipulation attempt only reinforced my resolve. I started documenting everything, calls, messages, visits, just like before. Each record became a shield, a reminder that their attempts to control me had failed. One particularly dramatic moment occurred when Clara showed up at my apartment, unannounced, holding a folder of financial suggestions. "Tina, we're only trying to help," she said, her voice sweet but her eyes sharp. "You need to reconsider. You're destroying relationships over money." I looked at her calmly and said, "I've already taken control. You no longer have access to what is mine. I've paid enough, sacrificed enough, and tolerated enough. This ends now." She left, stunned. I realized she had expected tears, panic, or excuses, but instead she faced confidence and strength. That was the first real victory in my ongoing battle. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, the family began to realize that their attempts to manipulate me had completely failed. They noticed I was thriving independently, paying my own bills, managing my money responsibly, and even investing for the future. They realized their threats, guilt trips, and pleas no longer had power over me. Relatives who had once taken Clara and Mia's side began to question the narrative. Many quietly acknowledged that I had been the backbone of family finances for years. The shift in perception was subtle but powerful. Every time they tried to involve others in their schemes, they were met with skepticism. Even my father began to respect my boundaries, realizing he had underestimated both their greed and my perseverance. Finally, Clara and Mia seemed to understand that nothing they did could regain their hold over me. One day, Clara called, voice trembling, "Tina, maybe we were wrong. We shouldn't have." I listened calmly, letting the silence stretch. Mia sent another text, pleading, "We just want things to go back to normal." I deleted it, because the truth was clear. I was no longer affected by their greed or manipulations. I had regained control, protected my future, and reclaimed my dignity. I had survived exploitation, emotional manipulation, and betrayal. I had worked tirelessly while they drained every resource I provided. And now, for the first time, I could live freely, independently, and with pride. They realized too late that trust once broken and exploited cannot simply be restored with apologies or pleas. I had taken back my power, and nothing could take it away again.